Hello, I'm back. Today I'm going to be talking about Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. Winter's Orbit was originally published in 2021. So, super new release. And here's a quick synopsis. Set in a timeline where humanity has expanded across the universe, most planets belong to an imperial government, as is the case for the Iskat Empire. Kiem, an imperial prince and playboy with a silver tongue, is placed into an arranged marriage with his cousin's widower, Janan. Their marriage is sudden and critical as the empire is set to sign a treaty unifying their power and acknowledging their solidarity with the Resolution, a sect of humanity whose sole purpose is to ensure peace treaties between the multiple empires hold firm. The newlyweds begin to uncover a plot set to unravel the hard-fought peace of the empire. They must work together to uncover the truth, and they will learn about themselves and each other along the way. So, Winter's Orbit, I did a little bit of digging on it. Originally, it was released online as an online version of the story, and I think it was super popular with fans and went through some revisions and is now being published in its new form of Winter's Orbit. Just generally kind of talking about the writing style, I can see how it was originally released online. In some ways, it kind of reads as a little bit of a fanfic. It reads as kind of, Tumblr era type of language. And what I mean by that is it's very much like it falls into a lot of tropes. That's a pretty common theme in the story. There's a lot of romance tropes, a lot of kind of classic misunderstandings. These two characters that in a lot of ways could be perfect for each other, but they continue to misunderstand one another. And so because of that, they think that they hate each other, essentially. So it's kind of like an enemies to friends to lovers type of story, if that's something you're into. The genre is like a science fiction romance type. So we kind of went over the overview. We know that there's a little bit of like a mystery going on. Personally, I would say that the story is more so a mystery than a like action adventure story. It's not really so much like science fiction, as newlyweds are working to uncover some mysteries about the empire, about some like secret projects and some potential bad guys that are trying to kind of unravel the empire and the state with all these up and coming proceedings that are coming up super quickly. So that is like a huge part of it. It's not like a romance story per se. I think the character thoughts and kind of the romantic undertones of the story definitely help move the action and move the plot along, but it's not exactly like a romance story either, where there's like a lot of, steamy scenes or anything like that. It's pretty tame in terms of the actual reading. So I don't want to give away too much about the plot or the characters or any types of spoilers or anything like that in this video. I kind of just want to talk a little bit more about my thoughts as a whole. I've read a couple of science fiction books over the last couple of years, and I've been a little bit disappointed with a lot of them. I feel like science fiction is sometimes it gets very into like tropes and it kind of just becomes super repetitive. This book, while it definitely had its fair share of cliches and tropes that it followed, I actually really liked it a lot. I found it really enjoyable. It was really lighthearted for the most part. It does cover some darker subject matter, and some of the things that the characters go through is potentially like emotionally intense, but it's, for the most part, I think it's like a pretty light reading. It's mostly about kind of a love story and this murder mystery and trying to kind of solve all these crimes, whodunit type of deal. So it's not super sci-fi oriented, but I think in some ways that kind of works for its favor. I personally really enjoyed it. This story focuses some on world building, but it's not like super intense. There are a lot of characters, but I never felt super overwhelmed by the character names or, got lost or anything. It's pretty easy to follow. I think the author did a good job on developing the characters. Our main characters and our side characters are all pretty well developed. In some ways, I wish the world had been explained maybe a little bit in more detail in some aspects. There are some really cool ideas that were brought up that weren't explored super deeply, but I think ultimately that might just be an opportunity for the author to revisit either these two characters or even branch off into another story set in this same universe. It sounds like the author does have plans to continue this type of world building, so it'd be interesting to see what the next installment has. So going into some pros of the book, again, I think the pacing was really good. It was really light. The author is really good about hooking you at the end of chapters, so I found myself wanting to just continue reading because I wanted to know what was going to happen next. It was interesting. It was fun. The characters are likable. There wasn't really any character that I was like, oh, I hate this person. I just wish this person was like not in the story. Even some of the more villainous characters are maybe a little bit over the top villainous, but still kind of fun because of that. So that was a nice element of the story. I think also I really enjoyed how progressive a lot of the themes within the story itself are. So Kiam, who's a prince of this empire, and Janan, his betrothed, his husband, are both people of color. They're in a gay relationship. There's mention within the society of gender identity. It's not really a big deal. Essentially, people have the option to wear like an adornment, a jewelry, necklace, earrings, a hairpiece that shows how they identify, either as male, female, non-binary. And we do meet some characters in the story who are non-binary. I think it's really cool that in this sci-fi world, everything isn't perfect, but it seems like humanity's advanced in a lot of ways socially. So that was really cool to see. I personally really like that when I'm looking for a story. That's something that I look for. And I think especially in science fiction, in my opinion, unless the story is like specifically geared towards a more dystopian and backward society, I like the idea that things would be much more progressive in the future. My only real cons were just some of kind of falling into some tropes at some point. It's funny because on one hand, some of the tropes I really enjoyed. I found it entertaining, even if predictable, still enjoyable. But on the other hand, it does make the story more predictable. So if you're looking for something that's like super shocking and I had no idea, I never saw that coming, maybe not the best story for you. Additionally, sometimes the writing to me read as fan fiction. It's not necessarily a bad thing if the story read as maybe a little bit more mature. Again, that's just my personal opinion. Overall, I thought the book was actually super enjoyable. I really liked it. It was just like a nice, easy read. Is it something that I'll come back to, many times? Maybe not, but for just light entertainment and reading, super fun. Really enjoyed it. A new sci-fi work, again, one of the sci-fi works that I personally have enjoyed more. If that sounds like something you're into, something you might be interested in, definitely check it out. And also, if anybody has any recommendations for books similar to this, a completely different book that you really enjoyed and want me to check out, please feel free to leave that recommendation. I definitely try to see all of those recommendations and appreciate them. I'm always looking for new stuff to read. If you have read this, I'd love to know your thoughts. What did you think about it? Did you like it? Did you agree with any of my critiques, or do you completely disagree? I'd be super interested to know. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.